Hey, what's up, everybody? Today's Monday, December 16th. Hope everybody's having a good holidays. I am trying my best to just kind of like, pretend that things are fine. You know, I don't know. It's like, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I made a few notes. Um, there's a couple things that are not really about me. There's a couple things that are kind of related to what I'm going through. Kind of segues into it. It's about hesitation. It's about the state of content creation right now, especially like what I keep seeing on YouTube. What's going to help shift away from negative thinking to positive. That's not just about me, but it's kind of what I'm facing right now. And how I feel like there's nowadays, like more than ever, there's so much more potential as a content creator than there has been in any time in history. How come it's not changing my category correctly? I don't know if it was because of Restream. I literally went into my stream manager and switched it over to just chatting category. And then it switched over to Path of Exile. There's something going on. I think Restream, like, they changed their API. And ever since then, everything's been messed up. It's been frustrating. Like, why? I mean, I understand there's like, you get new developers and they have their own thing. APIs update, and then they have to adjust their API because of it. And that's frustrating. And then they sneak in design changes that are just like not really wanted. It's just really frustrating because it was working perfectly before. There was really no reason to change Restream's setup. I can see like maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe I need to figure it out better because it's just like it feels like, yeah, like when I do category on Twitch and Restream, there should just be, it used to work and now it just doesn't work. So I had two different categories and I guess there was conflictions. It said I was streaming on Path of Exile 2 when literally I had just set the stream manager to just chatting. So now let's see what, hopefully it should all be just chatting. Okay, just chatting. There we go. Yeah. Hey. Hi. Hello. Hi. I'm rebeccaloran. And this is rebeccaloran on twitch.tv and YouTube and all sorts of stuff. We got 3 subscribers. I'm not paying attention to that. I don't care about that. I care about eating sour cream. No, this is yogurt. And coffee. But here's the thing. Is I feel like it's so easy to like look at our algorithm and like look at like what we see is like going viral on like TikTok and YouTube and all that stuff, or and just we see it and our mind immediately tries to basically fool ourselves into thinking that this is the state of content. When it's like we need to be able to think bigger. That just because we see a lot of the same type of content on our feeds, it's literally just a giant feed of content. And some of it is like a trend, but not all of it. And some of it is like literally, I think if we went back in time, like 1,000 years, and we gave people the ability to document their creative process the way we do now, to be able to create content for mass consumption. If people were able to do that 1,000 years ago, I don't think it would be any different. The only stuff that we see from the past are the stuff that survived. And now we see a lot more because everything has a chance to exist now. pretty much, unless it's just completely just does not belong anywhere. Stuff that's just, there's just some stuff that like just people don't want. And even though, yeah, there's always going to be people who do want that, it's just like there's some things that we as a society have determined that like this is like not what people want. Frustratingly enough, I have to overcome a problem that I don't think is insurmountable, but I have to overcome a problem where it's like, just, I don't know, like, I mean, it's a pretty male dominated space, especially in Twitch. And then you add to that the fact that I have to even defend my womanhood. So not only do I have to be a woman, I have to also defend that I'm a woman. It's like a double whammy. It's like, make up your mind. Like, do you want me to? It just doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. But even, that being said, it's like, it must be really important if, despite all of the negativity that my life faces because of being a woman, I still have to live as a woman. It's like, it kind of speaks volumes to how important this is, because it's like, a lot of women might not understand like why somebody would transition. I think there was even some commentary, like characters in like Orange is the New Black. There was that one woman that was like the I guess like the, I don't know, like the owner of the, I don't even remember. See, my brain is kind of like not really working lately. I don't know if it's the stress. I don't know if it's because I just went through so much trauma. Like, literally, like, even though it's all for the better and even though good things happen, I think going like through multiple surgery process that I went through, I think that kind of like hurt me, like at least temporarily, like mentally and psychologically. It made me stronger, obviously. Every time we go through an adverse experience, even if that because sometimes we go through adverse experience so that we can get stronger. And that was the case with me. So that I could live a better life, so I could be stronger. That's really important. And, no matter what happens, that's all any of us are doing. And I feel like, what really is like the reason why I feel the need to not stay quiet, to even open up my stream, like to even turn on my camera and start talking to the microphone. There's something that is driving me to do that. There is definitely something, and I might not always know what it is, especially lately. I feel like I'm kind of lost. I know that I will find my way back, and it'll be better than ever before. But it's just, as a content creator, just struggling to figure out what exactly is your content. Like, what do I want to make? And I feel like that's like a great reason to go live, honestly, right now, is like, well, I could just be miserable. I could just refuse to try. Or I could just go live and just try to figure it out live on camera. Those are two options, and it's a better option than doing nothing. So there's a lot of content that I want to make. There's content that I can only make on certain platforms, but I don't want to be only making that kind of content. I want to make stuff that people actually like can potentially like. I don't know if anybody can really change the world. And I feel like it's almost like it's a double-edged sword. Like, the fact that it's so hard to change the world can be a good thing and a bad thing. Because it's like, if it was so easy to change the world, then everybody would. And like, the world would be chaotic. I mean, I guess it is. But I guess because it's so hard to change people's minds, that's kind of a good thing too. Because if you can manage to do it correctly, where nobody's getting really hurt, then it's like, I feel like you can make a positive impact. But like, what really is that? Like, what are we really just like trying to basically just be okay with our meaningless existence. Like I know nihilism is like not really that good, but it's just like it feels like life sucks. But we have to make it better. We have to keep trying. Cuz it's like if you give in to that, that nihilism really just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like when nothing in your life has really worked out, I don't really think that's true. Like the fact that I'm even saying that, that's not even based in reality. It's not. Because I've made things happen that a lot of people struggle to do. But like there are things that I've been able to make happen that I had been spending, years of my life believing to be impossible. The fact that I was able to get a surgery that now just helps me feel like, hey, like I wake up in the morning and I just feel like, what am I going to have for breakfast? I got to make some coffee, like those are the kind of thoughts that I did this for. The boring, everyday thoughts. And it's like, okay, well, now that I'm here, now I have to face like this beast of like, am I really just not very interesting? Do I have to bring up like a gender related transition and surgery related things in order to be different? And I don't think that's the case at all. I think there's a lot about me that I basically I never got to explore. And now that I'm ready to do so, it's a little bit scary. And I'm a little bit worried that things might not really work out. But I think it's going to be okay. I have a lot to say, obviously. I mean, why else would I talk so much? Why else would I type so much? It's just, it seems like a lot of people don't really care for what I have to say. And I don't really know why that is. It's like a fine line between like, oh, well, maybe I just need to change the way I talk or change the way I type, change the way I write. But at some point, it's like, well, then you're just chasing an algorithm. Then you're just chasing a trend. Like, at what point are you just giving up your entire creative autonomy just to try to fit some kind of algorithm? And I feel like that's like really scary line of thinking. That I feel like once you start thinking that way and you're thinking only about marketing, you're thinking only about how people like, oh, I need to say something that is going to be popular. I feel like as soon as you start doing that, well, what if it ends up not being popular? Then you just sacrifice your creative integrity for nothing. I mean, obviously it might work really well, but it's just like at some point it's just like, no, I have to put my foot down. Just because I'm not popular doesn't mean that what I'm doing is wrong. Doesn't mean that what I'm doing isn't valuable. And it might change from day to day. It might be that my style of content isn't popular right now, but maybe in a few weeks it will. You never know. Like, you just don't really know. Nobody knows what's going on. Anybody who claims to know exactly what's going on you should be really suspicious of. Because it's like nobody really knows. Because what worked 10 years ago doesn't work anymore. And what works now is not going to work 10 years from now. Most likely. Or maybe it's a cycle. Maybe it just kind of just always cycles and it's just not my turn yet. It's like I really, but also, I also need to treat that as like, okay, I need to get over my ego just because I can say that. There's also a part I have to do, which is to make sure that I'm making better content that people want to watch. That there might be a reason why I'm unpopular. I don't think it's my appearance, although I could do a better job at taking care of that. I'm not really too worried about that. There's people like Asmongold who make millions of views. Okay, like that appearance isn't the reason. Okay, I mean, honestly, I know people like to shit on Asmongold on his appearance and whatnot, but he's actually like, I think he plays that up a bit. you know, especially if he's like kind of like, I think he cleans up really well, and I think he does have charisma. Um, he just pretends that he doesn't have it, and that's kind of his draw. Like that's kind of, I think that's kind of what like he's doing his own thing. Obviously, I'm kind of you know, I wouldn't want to do what he's doing. And he's also baiting a lot of people who are very disenfranchised, very lonely men. But then what I do is also bait really lonely men, at least in my other content platforms. So, I mean, is it any different? Not really. I don't think there's any kind of moral high ground anybody should ever take. Because you could always turn it around on yourself. What makes me so special? What makes me any different? And it's not like it's a bad thing. It's just how human nature works. That we you know, it's why content is the way it is. It's you know, it's just how content always has been. It's not new just because of the internet. It's not new just because of like YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Like this is something that has always been the case with human psychology. Is that people want to get mad at something, and I think I understand why. It's because you need something to make sense of all your anger. You need to point at something and say, this is why I'm angry. Maybe Asmongold knows that. And he knows that if he makes enough people angry, maybe he can make people feel good enough about themselves that maybe they can do something about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him way too much credit. I don't think he's doing it for those kind of reasons. But that's the difference between me and him, is because I see those kind of things in people, even if they don't see it themselves. And that's what makes me unique. It's part of what makes me unique. It's why I belong in this world, because we need people that think that way. I exist for a reason. I have these thoughts for a reason. Now, whether they're entertaining or not, like that's something that I can explore. I don't really know how to do that because I really don't know most of the time like what people truly want from me. I mean, I do. They want my sex appeal. They want my abilities in that realm. But what, you know, is that really all who I am? Is that really all? I don't really think that's the case. There have been a lot of like adult content creators who have been able to succeed in both worlds. And I think even like today, now more than ever, I think people, there is a stigma, but for every single person who is against you, there's going to be people who aren't. You ain't extruding a lot of sex. Well, that's because I'm not making sexual content. Do you understand? I'm trying to do the other side of the coin. Do you understand? That's why I'm wearing glasses. No, glasses can be sexy. I mean, no, that's the thing is like, I do really well with sexual content. And there's a reason, is because that's what people want from me. But whenever I try to do anything else, it just doesn't really, like, people don't seem to like me for my brain. And maybe that's just part of life. And I think it's also not just true for women. I think it's also true for men. There's certain men that if they exude certain attractive traits, which aren't always based on appearance, and same with women too. I think people really put a lot of emphasis in the wrong things when they think of what is sexy, what is sexual. And there's two different things. I'm like more of a sexual nature content creator, and that doesn't really translate all the time to more like podcast style content, which is more about, you know, what I have to say and how I say it. And my appearance, I mean, your appearance always matters. Like I'm wearing pajamas right now, and my room is kind of messy. Like that does happen. Like that does play a role, but I think it's like, I mean, it's all important, but I'm just kind of like brainstorming right now. So it's like, you're really kind of helping, like, cause you kind of like, you're part of the conversation. So it's like, I feel like when people Yeah, at least I'm thriving on one side. Yeah, I mean, well, thriving is like relative because it's always a journey. It's always a climb. You're never gonna have it easy. Like maybe there's a point where things get easier, but I think like it's always relative. Like there's always gonna be somebody better than you, no matter who you are. Even if you're the best, there's gonna be somebody that's gonna replace you like at any given moment. So it's like I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's just nature. And I think that like it doesn't mean you're going to fail. What it means is that if you place all of your expectations and all of your sense of accomplishment to being the best at something, whatever that is, you're going to inevitably just be disappointed. So I feel like you don't have to be the best to succeed. You don't even have to be better than most people. You can actually be not as good as most people and still succeed. There's something that's going on that some people are able to do that some people haven't really gotten. I think I'm on my right path. Like, I think I'm figuring it out. I think it's just something you have to go through the weeds. You have to go through the boring, like, arguments. You have to, like, with yourself. You have to like stare it in the face and say like what works and what doesn't work, and you're going to do a lot of things that don't work. And you know that goes true for no matter how, like, obviously I do kind of have like a better viewership when I do certain types of content, and I know why that is I mean, to an extent I think it's something that I am genuinely, I don't know if good at is the right word. It's something that really comes naturally to me and that I really enjoy doing. And I don't think most people can do it because it involves a lot of psychological things that I've overcome certain psychological hurdles that allow me to even engage in that type of content. That if you haven't overcome those hurdles, it becomes impossible. Like you might be able to like short term, but there's certain psychological hurdles that if you have not overcome those, it can be really damaging, and you can thrive if you do overcome them. And I feel like I'm on the right path. However, I'm in a period of time where I am recovering from surgery for a very lengthy amount of time, way longer than I anticipated. That it's been 9 months and I'm still in this state of like post-op recovery. And when you're in that kind of state, I don't think I can engage in certain physical activities so much. Not just like physically, but like psychologically as well. So I think that goes back to the psychological factor. Same with podcasts and YouTube and Twitch. I really feel like if you have not overcome certain psychological hurdles, you can never be successful on Twitch. And I'm not even talking about viewership. I'm talking about simply engaging with any amount of conversation with an audience. Like even one person, like right now. I feel like if you have not overcome that psychological hurdle, you will never be able to be a streamer whatsoever, in any form, in any capacity. I feel like there is something that is, if we detach from streaming or YouTube content creation or from doing any kind of content creation, if we detach the numbers, like the success, the financial and like the viewership, and we just talk about the activity in and of itself, which is going to scale, obviously, and it's going to change its nature based on the nature of the success. However, I feel like that's something that is important that you can always focus on, no matter how successful you are as a beginner or as unsuccessful or as successful financially. None of that really matters, because if you focus on just what is the activity itself, that will scale to like no matter how successful you are. And I feel like if you think about it that way, I feel like you're gearing yourself up more for success. You got to find your niche. Exactly. A lot of luck and hard work. And it's just, the thing is I feel like if I don't even know what I want to create, how are you supposed to answer when you don't even know what the question is? And that's kind of where I've been struggling for a number of years, because for the longest time, I used Twitch as a way to get me through a medical process. And maybe that hurt me. Maybe it helped me. I think it helped me. It helped me survive. Personally, I don't know if it hurt my image. I don't think it's possible to really hurt your image. Not with like just putting yourself online. And I didn't even say any really like controversial things. Like I'm not like one of the crazy. I mean, there's people with millions of viewers that are like extremely like kind of questionable content creators. Like racial humor. Comedians have been doing that for like a very long time, like since like the 60s, 70s, 80s, especially in the 80s. Like 80s, 90s, like comedians have been doing like racial humor or like edgy humor for a long time. So that's not really it. And so I really don't think that there is a negative to what I have been able to do over the past 5 years. I feel like it's so easy to look at it and say, oh, I wasted my time. No, I didn't. Like, it got me through like a medical process. But even besides that, as a content creator, if you don't show up and work on what your goals are, if you don't show up and just practice literally creating content, engaging with an audience, if you don't do that at all, I mean, I would have had to start now where I was 5 years ago. I had to try out a bunch of different kinds of content. I wouldn't have known what my types of content that works are. Like, I clearly have a path forward with sexual content. On one of my platforms, I have 11,000 followers, and I average. It went down after surgery, but I think it'll go right back up. I used to average 100 viewers before surgery on that platform, and now I average about like 30 to 40 viewers. But that's still pretty good, because a lot of women in my category, since being post-operative, but like, I kind of blend in now, which was kind of the point. But in that category, a lot of women get less than 20 viewers. So I'm like above the average. And like, I'm a beginner, and I have like only upward direction to go. I mean, look at my studio. It's not the greatest. Look at my setup. Like, I don't really have any, like, I'm at the bottom of the ladder. Okay, so if I am even that remotely successful, above the average as starting out, that tells me that I should keep working on that. And yeah, why aren't I doing that instead of showing up on Twitch? I think it's because it matters. This matters to me too. If not for, even if I'm not as popular, because most of my viewers are male, and I think my male viewers want something different from me. And so I have like a completely new set of viewers when I'm here. It's like two different worlds. And that's okay. And I think it's fine. And I want this to succeed too. It's just, it doesn't look as promising. But maybe it is. It might even be more successful in the long run. Who knows? But I think the thing that matters is that there is a reason why I set up a camera and a microphone and clicked go live. Or clicked start streaming. Like, there's a reason that I did that in the first place. And I need to remember that regardless of what happens, like, nothing will happen overnight. And also, there's going to be a lot of trial and error. And also, a lot of that trial and error is not going to have direct feedback. And so that's why it's such an uphill battle, is because it's like, as a content creator, there's so many factors that go into somebody clicking onto a YouTube video or staying on a stream and supporting a content creator. Those are two very different things. But usually, people have to want to support you. And I feel like there's a lot about me that people would like to support. But I also feel like a lot of the time, most people are not going to be able to stick around long enough to see that. And so I really need to figure out like what about my content is not working. And like when I make a YouTube short from like a clip from one of my streams, like why do other people's content work and my YouTube shorts fall short? When I'm saying similar things, at least in my mind, to what I hear other people say that gets like thousands and millions of views. So it's like I talk about topics and I say things that like are, you know, commentary on things that like a lot of people I see on my, you know, YouTube shorts feed, and I see on my, you know, every time I might see like TikToks, every time I see other people respond, like I've been studying like what people make for a very long time. I don't feel like I'm doing anything that different. I'm talking about the same topics. I'm making commentary. I'm like talking about like certain talking points. I really don't know what I'm doing wrong, because I don't seem to be, in my mind, I don't really think I'm doing anything differently. Maybe I am, and I don't really have that direct feedback. I have comments, but you can't always really trust comments. Like it's just some random people who don't like me commenting negative things. I don't think most people are going to give me objective criticism. I think they're just going to not like me for whatever reason. And I don't even think that's a bad thing, because, you know, engagement is engagement. Like if people are commenting, they're commenting. So, you know, it's all part of the algorithm. And so I don't really think that it has to do anything with that. Maybe I'm just not creating enough content. Because I feel like, yeah, my content could always be better. But like when I have something to say, I really talk about it a lot. But lately, I want to talk about this. It feels like nothing, I can't even think anything. Like right now, I know obviously I'm thinking. I know obviously I have something to say. But like lately, like I said, maybe it's just a natural part of going through all those surgeries and then overcoming like that negative cloud of dysphoria that had taken over my entire life. It's suddenly gone. And now I don't really feel like I have a soul, basically. I mean, I know that's like, it's obviously like, it's a psychological, you know, thing. And it's not real. Like, obviously I have a soul, if there is one, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like, I obviously have a brain, and I obviously have a personality, and like, but like in my, there's this internal experience lately. It just feels like I'm not even here. Like, it feels like I want to create content, but I don't really know like what to do. I don't even know, like, I feel like I'm not even having any thoughts. Like, I feel like I don't even have a consciousness. It's really weird. I really don't know how to describe it. I think it'll come back. I think it's like, maybe it's just on cooldown. Because of like going through the process I went through, it kind of used up all my energy. And now I feel like I don't even really have like the ability to think through things. Like, I feel like I'm just talking for no reason. But then I'm just struggling to come up with what to say. That I feel like, okay, well, camera's on, I have to say something. And maybe that's just how you do it. You just have to fight through it, because it's like, if I just sit back and just be miserable and just say, oh, well, why even try? Well, obviously, if you don't show up to do anything at all, then it's going to not get better. Like, you have to show up and try even when, like, even when it's not doing so well, right? So it's like, you have to be willing to show up and try. That's why it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's so easy to just give up and just play video games. Like, I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft. I'm really enjoying it. And I think that's fine. You know, all my mental health workers and my case manager and such, you know, they think it's perfectly fine. They're like, don't judge yourself for having a hobby. I just feel like it's taking over my life. I am objectively doing really well. I am objectively taking action to improve my life. And it's like, it's so easy for me to keep like moving the goalposts. And like having this like imposter syndrome is just really damaging. Like imposter syndrome, like where you wake up and you feel like there's no point in doing anything because it feels like you're not doing enough. But you have to fight through that anyway, because obviously if you're going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't show up to do anything at all, even if it's garbage, it's still better than doing nothing, because at least you're giving yourself the opportunity to overcome it. You're giving yourself the option of rising over it that moment. And you might not do it that moment, but then another moment comes, and another moment, and then another moment, and then eventually you just kind of overcome that. And before you know it, even though obviously I understand, as somebody who's done a lot of public speaking on my stream, a lot of the time to very little people, very few people, I understand that when you're in the act of content creation, you're not really thinking about how you're doing it. You're not really thinking about, you know, like critically of it. You're thinking, it feels like you're not thinking at all. And I know this because then when I go back later and watch it as a viewer, I'm like, whoa, like, what am I talking about? I have a lot of things to say. It's way different than I thought it was. So it's like, I feel like having that confidence to speak, even though it feels like you're saying nothing. Because even right now, at this exact moment, it feels like I am saying nothing. But when I go back in the VOD and clip this and put it up on YouTube, it's going to be a lot more profound than I imagine it is. Making content for the viewer rather than for the content creator itself. You have to think how a viewer thinks. But when you're thinking like a creator, you can't think like a viewer thinks. And when you're thinking like a viewer thinks, you can't think like a creator thinks. It's fundamentally opposite sides. Like it's like the same, two sides of the same coin. So it's not like different, but it's fundamentally different. That when you are in the act of content creation, you are not in the right mindset to be able to analyze what you're creating. You have to have that confidence to just do it. It's like if you were at the top of a hill, like, you know, a crest of a hill, and you had a sled. You can't just like ease your way into it. Once you start letting gravity work, you are going to fall. And if you don't commit to it, you might get injured. You might screw up the landing, because it's like you have to follow through with it. You have to go with the flow. You can't be thinking about all these little things, because if you take any hesitation, it's already too late, because it's happening in real time. And just like while you're going down that hill in a sled, a bobtail sled, a bobtail sleigh, you're going down a hill in a sleigh, you literally, your gravity is not going to let you stop. So you have to commit to it. You have to know before you do it, in the moment, I'm not going to be able to make adjustments the way that I would right now. So I have to take time to think about what I'm going to be doing before I do it. So that when you actually commit to doing it, you can focus completely on taking action in the moment. And I feel like with content creation, it's a matter of like spending time understanding how your mind works, understanding like what things you focus on, which is why I comment on a lot of YouTube videos, even if nobody reads it, even if like only like one person reads it and they're like, they think I'm dumb or whatever. Like that doesn't really matter because I need to understand where my mind goes. And even if I make zero progress as a content creator, I need to be building up that understanding so that I can then apply that towards my content. Because otherwise, I'm just throwing random shit at the wall. Like throwing spaghetti on the wall and waiting for something to stick. And obviously, that's always going to be the case. That is what content creation is. A lot of the time. You're throwing spaghetti at the wall, waiting for some of it to stick. And a lot of the time, it's not. You're just going to make a big mess. But then, after a while, you start to learn, like, okay, maybe if I flick it a certain way, not too hard, not too soft, like, you start getting data. And you get feedback. And you're able to understand the way it works. And over time, it's going to take a long time. But it will pay off. Hey, Sitara. How you doing? We're just talking about content creation, about life, how life affects content creation, how content creation affects life. And I always like, maybe this will slowly die off. But, I right now, it is very relevant that I am overcoming. I have overcome so many obstacles, but other areas of my life were sacrificed for that. And I have to face those parts of my life now. And going through that medical process I needed, it's going to have a long-term kind of like decompression period. It's been 9 months and I still feel like I'm barely out of it. It might be closer than I realize, but things are starting to feel, it's at the point where I have to have that confidence, just like going down that hill in that sleigh. You have to commit to it. Because at this moment, it's more important now than ever not to give up on myself. Because right now it feels so logical to just give up. But if you give up, what was all this for? Why should I give up? And why, when there is literally no reason for me to? The thing that makes the difference between successful people and non-successful people is that successful people push through the parts where it looks like it's at its worst. Where it looks like it's never going to happen. Where it looks like nobody can possibly make this work. That's the difference between people who succeed and who don't. Because when you have that level of follow through where every single data point is telling you to quit and you still do it. That's what it takes to do anything. Anything as simple as making a cup of coffee. If you really think about it, if you had absolutely no idea how to make a cup of coffee, it's your first time you've ever done it before, you're probably going to be really shitty at it. You're not going to understand how to make coffee. Like, imagine if all you had were uncooked, unroasted beans. You'd probably start with just like putting water in the beans and then just chewing on the beans. Like, there's going to be lots of times where you're going to think that like, oh, I should just never have coffee. This is gross. But there's people who followed through and they're like, let's try something else. What if I roast them? What if I grind them? And then what if I arrange them and then pour like boiling hot water over it? Like, there's like all sorts of these different things that like, as soon as you find the right way, suddenly it starts to work in a way that you would like. And so it's just like coffee. that if you really think about it, we take it for granted. Things that we do, like putting on our socks, making our bed, or brushing our teeth, or anything like that. If you really think about it, there are so many obstacles towards making those things happen. We don't think about it because we've done it so much. But if you really think about it, the process of making coffee, if I didn't have that confidence, it would never happen. I have to actually go up, boil the water, get the grounds, put it in the filter, pour the hot water over the grounds, and let it trickle down. But if I was questioning myself every step of the way, oh, like what if I can't reach for it? What if I reach for the coffee grounds and I drop it? What if the lid falls off? What if I have to sweep the whole floor because coffee grounds are all over the floor? What if the measuring cup is broken? What if the hot water, what if it's too hot? What if it's not hot enough? Oh God, like if you're thinking about everything that can go wrong, it's going to be harder to take action. But you're like, no, I have to trust that when I reach for the coffee, that I need to trust my muscle movement and my control, that I'm not going to drop it. I have to have faith in my ability to reach up for the coffee grounds, put them on, and lift up the lid, set the lid down, scoop the coffee, like first of all, get the little coffee filter holder thing, put the coffee filter in, put the coffee holder thing, coffee thing on top of the cup, put the grounds in, maybe shake them up a little bit to make it even, and then, put the water in the kettle, boil the water. When the water is boiled, grab it, and then hold the pitcher a certain way so that the boiled water will go over the grounds at a certain tempo. And like, if I doubted myself every step of the way, it's very unlikely that I would have started. But in the end of the day, you do all those things and you make a cup of coffee. We don't think about these things when it comes to everyday things. But when it comes to stuff like YouTube or Twitch, any kind of content creation, writing a novel, writing a screenplay, anything like that. When we think of those things, for some reason, we don't think of it the same way as making a cup of coffee. And I think that's where the failure is. Because I need to think of it like, hey, obviously I'm not doing too well because nobody taught me how to. I have to be the one to teach me how to. It's not like making coffee. It's been done before, but coffee is a little bit more consistent. There's so many different ways to make coffee, but in the end of the day, you still get the same coffee. Whereas there are so many different ways to make content, and there's so many different end results with content creation because there's so many different ways that people consume content, not just in liquid form like coffee. Coffee is a very straightforward, direct result. So it's really easy for us to commit to. But with content creation, you could do the same thing someone else does and not get something that is really tasty. Like, because it's not really going to work in your circumstances. It's not going to work for what you have to offer. And so it's like, that's why with creative processes, it's a lot more difficult to remember that it's basically like making coffee. And that if we get down on ourselves and criticize ourselves, it'd be basically the same as if like we were trying to make coffee and it's like, oh, I need to reach up into the cabinet for the coffee grounds, but okay, get yourself together, Rebecca. Okay, you're not going to drop it. And then you try tentatively to do it, and then you might actually drop it because you're not confident. But you have to just go for it. You have to grab it because you have to trust your muscles. You have to trust your mind that you have done it before and you can do it again. And you don't really have to go through this process when it's something like making coffee. I mean, maybe you do if you're, I am autistic, and there might be certain people on the autism spectrum that might have this thought process. So it's really important to remember that we should not take these things for granted. That I happen to be on a part of the spectrum that doesn't necessarily have that issue. Maybe I do, actually. Maybe I just overcame it with a lot of activities. Maybe I actually do have that issue. And it's so much easier to think that content creation, or like writing a novel or writing a screenplay, it's so much easier to think that that's separate from making a cup of coffee, when in the end of the day, it's the same, it's just more complex. And if I don't treat myself with that lack of confidence when I make coffee, then why am I treating myself with that? Why am I being so harsh on myself about things that are so much more complex than that? Content creation? Are you kidding me? Do you understand how complicated it is to get somebody to be interested in something that you have to put out into the world? When there are like things bombarding people like night and day? And I'm not even talking about the internet. That's just like, content creation on crack. Okay, like this has been the case for the entirety of human history. There's always been people trying to pull your attention away. Somebody with the, I do it better than you, or I have more value than you, and like trying to pull people away from what you have. And I feel like it's very important to remember this, because it's like a lot of the time, the reason I'm failing is because it's like that image that I painted of trying to make coffee. If I were to translate my content creation method, habits, my patterns, whatever you want to call them, if I were to translate my content creation mannerisms and then put it into the realm of like, what if I made coffee the same way I made content? Then I'd be like, oh, I want to make coffee, but what's the point? Am I even going to drink it? What's the point? Why even get up to make coffee? Why get out of bed? Whatever. I'm just going to scroll YouTube instead. And then, maybe I'm like, okay, I need coffee. And then I get up and do it. Okay, I overcame that problem. Okay, next step. I have to go walk to the kitchen. Fuck. What if I fall? What if when I open the door, I step out and I'm not even in my house? What if I get teleported to a completely different planet and suffocate and die? What if I open the door and I just fall because I got teleported to like a different place and I'm on top of a cliff? What if I open this door and I just disintegrate? Okay, I'm gonna go through the door. So I go through the door. Okay, I'm in the kitchen. Yes, I overcame that obstacle. Okay, and now I need to open the cabinet. Fuck. God damn it. I got so far and lost it all. But in the end, it doesn't even matter because I can't even open that cabinet. What if I try to open the cabinet and my arm falls off? What if somebody comes in and starts yelling at me? What if somebody takes the coffee from me when I grab it? Like, what if I start to get the coffee and then I for some reason, I drop it. Okay, I'm just gonna grab the coffee. Okay, bam. I overcame that obstacle. Okay, now I have to open the lid. Fuck. I got this far and I'm gonna get stopped by a lid? Who designed this lid? Why is it covered in the first place? Like, why is the world so cruel as to create a lid that I will not be able to get access to the coffee unless I open the lid? Why would people do this to me? Like, why is society so messed up that I can't, that I am getting barred access to these coffee grounds by society, by the government? Okay, you know what? The government's not gonna hold me back. I'm gonna open the lid anyway. Okay, I open the lid. Do you see where I'm going with this? Like, do you see where I'm going with this? I don't think I have to go on now. So, like, that's how my creative process works. And I think it's like how a lot of people's creative process works. But it can be as easy as making a cup of coffee becomes. That we can just go in and we're just like, we slump into the kitchen, we grab the coffee, we open the lid, we start boiling the water. Like, we put the thing on top of the coffee cup, we put the filter in, we measure out the coffee grounds, we put it in, we cover it up, we put it back in, and then we wait for it to boil, and then we like pour the water over it, wait for it to drip down, and then we drink our coffee. Easy peasy. Because you've done it so many times, you don't need to worry about it. And so, like, it's not going to be that straightforward, and that recipe is going to be different every single time that you create content, and different content is going to require a different process. But if I treat it psychologically as just do it, make your dreams come true. Yesterday was supposed to be today, or today was supposed to be yesterday. Yesterday you said today. Yesterday you said today. Just do it. Okay, yeah, I mean, in the end of the day, nothing's gonna stop me. I know that I'm gonna keep showing up. I know that I'm going to keep trying and failing and trying and failing and hating and gooning and hating. But in the end of the day, the only thing that matters is I need to find the thing that works for me. And it's going to be different than what works for someone else. And just because I haven't found it doesn't mean it's not out there. And so there's going to be people that are going to tell me to quit. There's going to be people that tell me that I'm never going to succeed. Those people are wrong. It's like telling somebody you're never going to be able to make a cup of coffee, Rebecca. Give up. Go to Starbucks. They just want me to go to Starbucks. I can make my own cup of coffee. I know I can do it. Anyway, I'll talk